Welcome, my name's Dave Jackson, aka the Sticksmith, and today I'm going to show you how to weave one of these garden obelisks or wigwams or plant support, depending on what you want to call it. So, first of all, we need a jig, some sort of jig, as you can see down here, to actually hold your sticks in a really nice firm manner. Now, I appreciate that not many of you are going to have a jig like this at home. You could, if you have some timber around, actually make one, and this spins, which means when I'm weaving I can sit still rather than having to move around the obelisk. But it's probably only worthwhile if you're going to make quite a few. Over here I've got another common way of holding them. If you happen to have an old tyre lying around, you can drill holes at regular intervals to hold your uprights nice and securely while you're weaving. Not many people have an old tyre lying around, so failing that, you can just put your sticks into some firm ground. It needs to be firm. There's no point putting it in a freshly dug over garden bed because the soil will be too loose to hold the sticks firmly whilst you're weaving. But here all I've done is put a stick in the centre where I want the obelisk, and then using a bit of string, which equates to the radius, I can mark out the positions of my uprights before then putting in my sticks. For what we're going to be weaving today, the distance between your uprights wants to be about 4 to 5 inches, and that will create some nice tension in the willow. Okay. Here I have my pre-cut willow sticks. These are a willow variety called Salix liminalis, and these are all 1 year old willow. You can see down here I've got lots more of the same stuff, and it grows to a very, very long length in 1 year. And the reason for using 1 year old willow is because it won't put on any side branches in that first year, so you've got nice straight stems without lots of side branches coming off. So these will be my uprights, and what I'm going to do is put them in my pre-drilled holes in this jig here. Now, in terms of tools, what you'll need is a pair of secateurs, and over here, for when we're finishing the obelisk, you may need a bodkin, which is a spiked tool. Again, you may not have a bodkin, it's probably very unlikely to have a bodkin, so what you can use is a screwdriver, and this is for later on for actually making slightly bigger holes in the weave so we can tie off the willow. If you have a bench grinder and an old screwdriver that you don't want anymore, then you can grind a nice fine point on that so it more resembles the point on this bodkin. And again, later on, what you might find useful, especially if you haven't got very good grip with your fingers, is a pair of pliers, and most importantly of all, a piece of thick string like this, an old bootlace. Now at this point, very important to put the bootlace around your neck, all will become apparent in a moment. So I've got my sticks in place. Now again, it's really important to gather these up at the top in an orderly fashion. So going in an anti-clockwise direction, I'm going to get each stick and tuck it behind the others to get these all bunching together at the top at a nice tight meeting in an orderly fashion. Take each stick in turn Now this is why you need your string around your neck, because if I'd left it over there I'd have to let go of all this before I tie it off. So I'm going to now tie this nice and tightly, really try and get it nice and tight. This is why a bit of thick string is best, because you can then pull it very tightly and do a simple bow that you can easily undo, because this is only temporary. Okay, so our sticks nice and firmly in the jig. I've now got the willow to my left here, which we're going to be weaving with. Now this has been soaked in the river, which the River Thames is just to the left of me here, and this is a basketry willow called Black Mall from the Somerset Levels, and it's really good quality basketry willow. Again, it's 1 year's growth, no side branches, very flexible. It's been soaking in the river because you buy it dried usually, but in order to make it flexible again to weave, you have to soak it, and this has been soaking for about 5 days, and now it's really nice and malleable. So to start off the weaving, I'm going to get 2 rods. I can go behind one upright with the butt ends here, got the tips and the butts going out to my left. 2 more rods, and I'm going to go to the next upright, go behind that with the butt end sticking out, so they're crossing over in one of the spans. I'm then going to bring these up about 6 inches. I'm holding the crossing point with my hand nice and firmly, and I'm going to get the first 2 weavers and weave them behind the next upright and back out. Next, get another rod, going to insert it up through this gap with the butt end behind the upright, and then bring it up with the other 2. I'm going to use my hand to get the spacing of these 2 uprights nice and parallel, and then using my thumb to hook around it to hold it in place, I get those 3 rods and weave behind the next upright and back out, and we do the same again. Get the next rod, insert it up through this gap here, butt end behind the upright, and it joins forces with these other 2 rods. Again, make sure I get my spacing correct, so I'm holding this tightly, use my thumb to push it away or that finger to push it back in. Once you've got it in the correct position, lock it with your thumb, gather all 3 rods together, go behind and back out, and you do the same thing again and again and again. Butt end up, behind the upright, get your spacing correct, and then you see what I'm doing, I'm pushing down with those fingers and using my thumb to hook it up to twist these together. Don't let go, keep the tension with your left hand and back out again. I'm keeping a good 6 inches from the bottom of the sticks to this bottom layer of weaving, because when you actually put this in your garden, you're going to want to put the bottom of these uprights into the ground a little bit to make sure that it's nice and stable. So up through that gap, you're doing the same again and again. Check your distance is correct. Weave behind that upright and back out. Now, I'm back at the start, and this is where we have to do something very particular to make sure that it doesn't all start unraveling from the bottom. So I'm going to get this first set of weavers underneath that first set of butts, and this set of weavers will go underneath that set of butts. So you can see here the arrangement there. Now I'm going to insert another rod, as I've been doing all along. This time I'm going to bring these butt ends up like so, out the way, weave these around, get them inside. Now last time I was bringing them out, but this time I want to bring them out underneath to help hold these weavers in place. So I'm going to put my hands inside and gently curve these round, a nice graceful curve. Try not to let the willow kink. If you let it kink, it will weaken it. Okay, so trying to keep a nice curve, just pop it through. Same again for this set. In it goes. Get a nice graceful curve. And pop it through. Now we have completed the bottom of the obelisk, and the butt ends are locked into the weaving and it cannot unravel from underneath. Now, as with my obelisk over here, I'm going to start a nice graceful spiral all the way up to the top. So I insert another rod, as I have done before, gather it up with the previous rods, go behind the upright and back out. Now I want to insert these rods, but I want to break free from the original ring because I'm now actually starting to spiral up. Again, twist these to get some tension, make sure your upright is in the right position, go behind and back out. Up through the gap. Get your upright in the correct position, then twist. What I'm actually doing with this hand, as I hold back cross, I'm actually also twisting it away. As with this hand I twist away, and that creates a very tight bit of tension in the weaving there, and by maintaining the tension with my left hand, my right hand is free to weave the remainder of the willow, and I carry on going. What I'm actually doing now, I'm using my hand as a spacing guide. So I'm mentally observing that the gap between these uprights is the width of my hand plus about 1 centimetre. So I'm using that to make sure that these spaces are consistent. As I go up higher in the obelisk, obviously the uprights will be getting closer together, and I may subtly want to reduce that distance. Now you don't want to go too steeply with this spiral. As I said at the start, the distance between these uprights is quite important. It's about 4 to 5 inches difference, and it subtly gets narrower as I go up. Now if I were to actually go at a very steep angle, you see already that's got very loose. I've effectively greatly increased the distance between the uprights, and all the tension goes out of the weaving. So keep it as a nice gradual incline. Think of a helter-skelter, one you wouldn't be too frightened of going on. Now in my pile of soaked willow over to my left, even though this is all 6 foot willow, some of it's 5 foot actually, so it's all been graded. Before I bought it, it was all graded, but there's still a wide variety of thicknesses in this. See, this willow rod here is about twice as thick as this willow rod here. Now that thicker willow rod will create an awful lot more tension in the weave than the thin one. The thick one is a lot harder to weave. So what I'm actually doing, I'm not just picking up any rod when I'm weaving down here. When I'm at the bottom of the obelisk and the distances between uprights are greatest, I'm generally using the thicker material. As I go up the obelisk, I'm naturally starting to select the slightly thinner material. So this one at this stage is probably far too thick. Probably going for medium at the moment. So twist both hands, behind and back out. And you'll see what's actually is happening is that they are just twisting, almost like a piece of rope twisting around each other. This bunch are on top here, there they're underneath. There they're back on top, and then they will be underneath. Now here, this upright is naturally getting very, very close, but when I weave it, I'm actually going to make sure I pull it out so that the distances are remaining uniform, and that way I can make sure that it stays in a nice uniform shape as I go higher. So I'm starting to select thinner rods now, and as you see what I'm doing, this is now about the width of 4 fingers, this gap here. So I'm going to try and maintain that. If your upright's too close, before I twist, I'm just going to push it away a little bit, just to get it in the right position, and then when I twist, it locks it in place. This one's a bit far away, so I'm going to push it in and then hold it with my thumb. At this point I'm going to stand up, it's getting a bit higher. Now I want to carry on weaving this spiral until I'm about 1 foot from where I'm ultimately going to be binding it. So I've got a little bit more to go. Now these uprights are getting much closer now, they're about 3 fingers spacing, and this weaving is getting physically tighter and tighter. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually for the first time going to omit adding a new rod, and I'm just going to weave those without adding a new one. But if I do it to one half of the weave, I must do the same to the other half to keep these 2 sets of weavers in balance. So I'm going to omit missing a weaver twice, and you'll feel when it's just getting physically very difficult to weave whether you need to actually omit a weaver or not. I'm going to introduce a weaver again now to both sets. A nice thin rod towards the top. And I think 2 more slim weavers, and I'm almost high enough. Now there is only one more weaver to add, and it's important that the one I choose goes to a nice fine point. Occasionally you'll have some that maybe fork at the end. It's important it has a nice fine point. So I'm going to insert that in as before, but instead of weaving them, I'm now going to get both sets of weavers together, and I'm going to twist them around like a single piece of rope and simply walk around the obelisk, twisting them as I go. The rate of spiral, the rate of climb will naturally want to increase. You can't hold it down, just let it go where it wants to go. Get the string out of the way. We'll start to go around just below the string. Now you can, if you want, you can leave the string in place. If you're not confident you're going to be able to bind this adequately with the willow, you can leave the string in place. Alternatively, you could have put a bit of garden wire or leave a bit of permanent string under there to actually make sure that it doesn't unravel. But I'm going to take the string off, and then I'm going to carry on twisting this willow until there's roughly a foot left in the tips. At this point I can lift it out of my jig, making sure I never let go because it will unravel. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run this over my thumb, and then looking down here you can see little gaps, little pockets of light, and I'm going to feed the tip through and pull this down, making sure this bit of willow doesn't kink. Try and keep it curving. If it kinks, it's more likely to snap. And then I'm going to pull down really hard. I can actually let go now because I've done that one and it won't unravel. I'll do the same with all the other bits. Find somewhere I can poke it down. Now I can actually see quite a few holes down here. If you didn't have an adequate hole, this is where the bodkin comes in useful, or the pointed screwdriver, because I can use my bodkin to force a slightly bigger hole down there, then remove it, and that gives me a nice big hole to place my willow tip. That one's gone a bit dry. And if you can, bring it back up and feed it down again. And there we are. We have a finished obelisk. All it needs now is a little haircut. When you trim these butt ends off, make sure you don't trim them so short that they pop out. And there we go, that's ready for your runner beans or sweet peas or whatever else you want to climb up it. Thank you.